Um, this is interview training for individuals receiving services. My name is Matt Giesecke, and I'm the Human Resources Director for GMS. So what we're going to cover today, I put a little agenda together. We're going to talk about, first, we're going to talk about the purpose of an interview. And we're going to go step by step. We're going to talk about the welcome, how you're going to welcome people. Then of course, we're going to talk about the actual interview. And within the interview, the questions you can't ask, because there's a lot of questions. You guys have already come up with a lot of great questions that I know we've talked about in the past. And we're gonna just go over some questions that you can't ask that are actually within the workplace that are illegal to ask. And then, of course, we want to talk about questions you can ask, and then we want to ask, and then how to ask them. How to ask those interview questions. There's a couple of different types of questions. There's closed-ended questions, and then there's open-ended questions. And we'll talk about the differences between those. And then at any time, if you want to ask a question, go ahead and ask the question. And I'll leave plenty of time at the end for questions. As we go along, if there's a question about what I'm talking about, that would be a great time for a question. And then at the very end, if there's something I didn't cover that you really want to talk about, then that would be a good time for that type of question. All right, let's talk about the purpose of an interview. What are we trying to accomplish in an interview? First of all, in an interview, it's a great time to introduce the company. It's a great time for GMS. It's a good time to talk about GMS. What is GMS all about? I like to talk about the mission of the company, to improve the quality of life by supporting independence. I make sure that people understand the services that we provide. So it's an introduction to the service. Sometimes people come in for an interview and they don't truly understand the type of service that we provide. They may have never worked in the service that they're interviewing for. So we may be providing them an education. And then it's a great time to introduce them to the individuals that they may be serving if they get the job. So this is a good time. This is a reason we'd love for you to be part of the interview. It's a good time for you to be asking questions, for you to introduce yourself. And it's a great opportunity to give a good impression of yourself and a good impression of the company. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, what that means and what that looks like to give a good impression. Purpose of an interview is it's a time to determine, is this a right match for the person? Is the company the right match for the person? Is the person the right match for the company? Is the person the right match for the individual being served? So are the personalities going to match? And the interview is a great time. People don't think about this often, but it's a great time to make a new positive connection. You never know what might come out of an interview. You may not end up hiring someone, but you may have made a new connection with someone for something else. And you might not know, again, it may surprise you. Maybe you find, and you know what, this example just pops up in my head. Maybe you just found a new music teacher for yourself. Maybe that's not someone we're going to hire, but maybe you've been interested in taking music lessons, and you interview this person and you find out they're a private music teacher, and you think this person's a wonderful match for that. And you take their name and number and you get in touch with them later on, and you end up taking music lessons from that person. And it's a great relationship moving forward for that purpose. So something like that. Or you learn something new from them. Some tidbit of information you learned from the interview that you didn't know before. So it's a good way to get to know people from the community. So let's talk about the steps of an interview. Let's talk about the welcome. So think about when they first walk in the door. And if you are joining through Zoom, because sometimes the interviews are conducted through Zoom, this is the time when you first meet them through video. So the welcome. First impressions are important. You know, people, believe it or not, people make judgments about other people very quickly within seconds of meeting them. Those are called first impressions. You know, when you walk up on someone and you shake their hand or you look at someone, you're going to decide probably if you like that person within the first few seconds of meeting them. Think about that and think about if that's true for you. I bet it is. It may sound judgmental, but that's human psychology. So it's a good time to make a first good impression. So what that means is wear good, you know, they're also interviewing you. So wear good, clean clothes, okay? You don't have to wear your best clothes, but wear presentable clothes like you're going out to eat. Smile, you know, act like you're enjoying the interview. I've been in interviews or I've interviewed with people and they just look unhappy. They just look miserable, and it makes things really uncomfortable for everyone. You ever been in a meeting with someone or you're just sitting with someone and they just look miserable and you don't know why, and you can't help sometimes but to think it's you, or maybe you think it's something you said. Can you imagine interviewing for a job and the person you're interviewing with just looks so unhappy and you think maybe they just don't like me. I probably don't have the job because they just don't like me. They look miserable. So smile, just like this woman here. Now, if we're meeting them in person, maybe a handshake is okay, but we're just getting out of a pandemic. Maybe, you know, depends who you ask. Maybe we're getting out of the pandemic. Maybe we're kind of still in the pandemic. Some people are shaking hands. Some people aren't. If they're not shaking hands, try a fist bump, or just give them a good smile and a nod, and that's good for a lot of people right now. But a friendly welcome. So handshake, fist bump, or a good smile and a nod. Have you done a fist bump yet? A lot of people are doing fist bumps right now. It's kind of the thing to do. So if you kind of reach out to shake someone's hand, sometimes it may be a little awkward, but sometimes they won't reach out for your hand. And again, it seems a little awkward, but if that happens, change your hand from a handshake to a fist and see if they'll do a fist bump. And then just do a little short, light conversation to ease the nerves. they're probably going to be really nervous. People tend to be really nervous for interviews. So I meet people at the door when they first come in. And as we walk down to where we're going to interview, here at GMS at the office, we often interview in the boardroom. So I meet them at the front door. And again, I smile, I greet them at the door. And as we're walking down to the boardroom, a little light conversation. You know what a light conversation is? When I say light conversation, a light conversation is kind of that conversation you might have with someone in an elevator. You talk about the weather. You might talk about the drive they had on the way. You know, did you find us okay? Yes, I know GMS is hard to find, that kind of thing. So a light conversation, it helps put them at ease a little bit. I always offer them water because people tend to be, when you're nervous, you notice you get that dry mouth. So offer them water. It's okay. If, let them know it's okay if they want to drink some water during the interview. And then let's begin. It's time to begin the interview.
Bye.
Introductions. Now you think we just did the introductions at the door, but that wasn't the introduction. The introductions actually start when we sit down. And if you're going to join us over Zoom, this is when we're going to do our introductions with you. We're going to ask them to talk about themselves and ask why they're interested in the position. The introductions, first of all, before they talk about themselves, there's a couple of different ways to do this. I generally introduce everyone in the room. I don't tell them a lot about GMS at this time because I do want to know what they know about GMS first, because I want to see if they've done their homework. If I share too much with them, then I won't be able to tell whether or not they've already, they've already been on our website. They've actually read the job description. Like, I want to know that they actually know what they've applied for. So when I do introductions, I generally I'll tell them who's on the Zoom. I'll say, this is Christina on Zoom. She's an individual that receives services. I'm the HR director. This is Terry. She's the associate director. So it's just a quick introduction. And then I'll say, could you tell me a little bit about yourself and ask us why you're interested in this position? And then they'll tell us what they feel is important for us to know about them. And I'll want to know why they think that they're the right person for the position, or they'll tell me why they're interested in the position. And now it's our turn to talk about the job, talk about the company. And, this is when I'll fill in the blanks. I'll talk about GMS. And also, if you're interviewing with us, I'll kind of hand things over to you for a few minutes and let you talk a little bit about yourself, particularly if we're interviewing for someone to work with you. Now, it's not a time to go over your whole diary. We're not going to want to spend a lot of time just talking about everything about yourself. You want to talk a little bit about yourself. So maybe you want to pick out a few facts about yourself, or a few interesting things about yourself, a few important things you might want them to know about yourself before we start the interview. And now it's time to move on to some questions. Before I talk about the questions, do any of you have any questions before I move on? Okay, yes, Christina. Okay,
Nope.
okay. Before I talk about questions that we can ask, I'm going to talk about questions we can't ask. These are questions that can get us into trouble, okay? Some examples. And these are examples, okay? Do you have any disabilities? We are not allowed to ask about any type of disabilities that the person has. And I'm going to go through a short list, and then we're going to talk about why we can't ask these questions. Do you have any children? You might be really interested about that. Maybe you really like children and you want to know if they have children. We're not going to ask about that. Do you go to church? Maybe church is important to you, and you want to know if they go to church, but we're not allowed to ask that. So far, you might be surprised. Are you gay? We're not allowed to ask if someone's straight or gay or lesbian, anything like that. We are not allowed to ask about sexual orientation. Are you married? Believe it or not, we're not allowed to ask them whether they're married or single. Surprised yet? Yeah. What country are you from? No. Not yet. We can't ask this question yet. Okay. Some of this stuff we can get into a little bit after we offer them the job. Okay. So let's talk about why. Before I tell you why, any of you have any thoughts as to why we can't ask some of these questions? Any of these questions? Do you have any thoughts as to why we can't ask them?
Some of them are very personal, and
They
some
are
kind of
personal.
lead into their family. It doesn't really involve that person, you know.
They're very personal. They don't have any, if you think about it, they don't have anything to do with the job. Right? It may be of interest to you, but it doesn't have anything to do with working. It doesn't have anything to do with the job. Any other thoughts? So the answers to some of these questions may lead to people being discriminated against, being thought less than or better than other people. So if you have you ever personally felt that you have been put in a group that has been thought of less than other people? And if so, how has that made you feel? Anyone have any thoughts about that?
Well, when I was younger, I was made fun of because of the way I look and or my disabilities, and it definitely doesn't make you feel well at all.
And how would you feel if you thought maybe someone didn't hire you because of your disability?
Well, they're not supposed to. It's discrimination, but
That's right. And that's right. It is. They're not supposed to, because
it would make me feel, upset because, they're basing it on the disability instead of, what I could actually do. And I haven't even, checked me out or, what I mean, to see if I could actually do a certain job.
That's right. We all need to be treated fairly and we all need to be treated equally. We all need to be given a fair chance, right? And some of these questions, the answers to some of these questions could lead others to treat us unfairly. So we have to leave all of this stuff off the table. Now, you may really like children, so you want to know if someone has children, but maybe I'm a boss that doesn't want to hire a woman who has children, because a woman who has children is always calling out late, and they're always calling out because her child is sick all the time. And right, so that's, and or someone who goes to, all right, so you go to church. Well, which church do you go to? Because that's my second question. Oh, you're Muslim, so I don't believe in what Muslims believe in. So I'm not going to hire a Muslim, right? So, or which country are you from? Oh, I'm not going to hire anyone from Africa. I've heard a lot of bad things about people from Africa, right? So these are all discriminatory thoughts, discriminatory actions, and they're illegal. Okay, and there are laws to protect workers. There are laws to protect Americans from discrimination. Okay, so if you we're allowing, we want your participation in the interview process. It's very important that you don't ask any types of questions like these. That's why I ask for your questions ahead of time before the interview, so that I can see what questions you're planning to ask. Just because I'm responsible, it's my job as the HR director to protect the agency, to make sure that, for instance, in interviews, that we don't ask these types of questions. So when you plan on participate in an interview, I just need to see what questions you're going to ask. That's why all of our interview questions, we ask the same of everyone. We have standard interview questions. We ask the same interview questions of everyone. We don't tend to mix them up too much. Sometimes at the end, after an interview, we might have follow-up questions, and those might be a little different, and that's okay, but they can't be these types of questions. Does that make sense to everyone? It's really important you understand this. So if you have a question about this, it's really okay to ask. If you think of a question, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, these are great examples, of what we can't ask. The only thing I might have, an issue with, that's just me though, is, what country are you from? And I get that you can't ask that, but sometimes it's hard to understand people from a different country, whether they're black or, that's the wrong way to say it, but you know what I'm trying to say. But that would be the only thing that I might, and I get totally the other ones, I mean, it shouldn't matter what church they go to or what, if they have kids. I mean, they're still an individual, and that doesn't mean that they can't, do the job.
That's actually a great question and great for discussion. We can talk about that a little bit toward at the end, because I have a little more to say about that. Because there's ways to address that without discriminating against someone. Because there are ways to talk about your concerns around someone's ability to speak English without discriminating against someone, right? So it doesn't mean you're discriminating against someone from a certain country. It just means you're struggling understanding them. It could be the same way. Maybe you want to hire someone and they're deaf. They were born in here in Maine, but they're deaf. So how are you going to understand them?
Some can read lips. That's one way they do read lips, some of them.
Right, but it's the same issue, right? We have to figure out how to communicate. So it's a good question. Well, let's talk about questions we can ask. There's all sorts of things we can ask. Keep it job related, and we talked about that. Let's ask about their experiences in life. Maybe how do they handle emergencies? You can ask about their likes and dislikes. You could ask them, do you know how to cook and clean? And you can even ask, do they like it? How do they feel about it? Ask about their reliability. And how do you know they're going to be reliable? Have them talk about that. Don't just say that they're reliable. Tell me more about that. How do I know you're going to be reliable? Tell me about your work experience and tell, basically have them tell you why they think they're reliable. What are some questions you can think of? I know you've had some good questions in the past. What are some questions that you would like to ask someone? Let's think of some good interview questions. And then after this, we're going to talk about how we should phrase them. But what are some things you would like to ask someone about that thinking about interviewing someone that you would like to work with you, what are some things you would like to know about them?
Are they going to treat me fairly?
Are they going to treat you fairly? Yeah. With respect, you mean? Like, yeah, that's good.
Are they going to do the things that I asked them to do?
Yep. I'm going to pick on you, Scott and Mary Ellen, because we don't have a big crowd.
Yeah. I know.
What do you think?
Yeah, Jackie just got home.
Okay.
I didn't even know what this is.
What? Okay, I'll tell them.
Can you think of a question you might ask someone in an interview?
Yeah.
For someone who might be working with you? Or what are some things that you would like to know about them?
Well, I would ask what they like to do, like if they like to go out shopping and stuff like that, Matt.
Do they like to go out shopping? Yep.
Yeah.
That would be good because you want to know, hey, are they just gonna sit on the couch? Right.
And I would ask them if they like to go to a concert or go to a baseball game too.
Excellent. Excellent. Good. Good.
Will they not be on their phones during, unless it's an emergency?
Right. Let them know up front. That's kind of a big topic right now. Let them know up front. You know, you don't like the whole being on the phone thing. You know, it's okay if you have a
Yeah.
family issue. You know, you have something important, you gotta check, you know, but not, you know, not sit there on their phone checking the sports score or what's on YouTube or whatever. Yeah. Okay, great. Anything else before we move on? Let's talk about how to ask the questions. There's close-ended questions.
Yeah.
Close-ended questions. Now, here's a closed door. You see the closed door? Can only answer yes or no. It's as simple as that. Yes or no. Do you like dogs? Yes or no. Do you like to go to the store? Yes or no. Those
Yes,
are
I
kind.
do.
Sometimes close-ended questions are okay. They're
Yeah.
kind of like, you know, they're okay, but they're not that great for an interview. It doesn't, you know, you don't get much of a conversation with a closed-ended question.
Yeah.
Okay. It'd make for a pretty short interview and you don't really get to know the person very well. What we like to do, or what we like to ask, are open-ended questions. You get to know the person. Those we like open-ended questions. Open-ended, they're called open-ended because they tell a story, or they're open for a story. They're open for conversation. They open the person up so we can get to know them. They don't end in yes or no. They tend to start with rather than do you like this or that. They tend to ask questions in ways that ask person to tell us a story, like what would you do if, and those questions are great for interviews. What would you do if this happened? And then the only way they could answer that is to tell some type of story, maybe a short story, but at least it's not yes or no. It helps them to tell a story about their experiences. So rather than you say, are you going to be late for your shifts? Yes or no. You could say, what would you do if you knew you were going to be late for your shift? So what are you really asking them? You're asking them if they're going to notify you, they're going to notify their supervisor, and are they going to give you plenty of notice? I want to hear from someone that I want to hear that person say, I will notify you and my supervisor with as much notice as possible. And I want to hear them say, hopefully, I want to hear them say to me, I hope that doesn't happen very often. And that would be an unusual circumstance.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about ourselves, it'll help with personality matching. You'll get to know the person and you can decide, hey, this person may be a good fit for me. I like this person. Or, I don't know, this isn't a great match for me. I don't know. And that's okay. If it ends up that it's not a good match for you, it's okay to say, I don't feel too good about this person. This isn't a good match for me. It's okay to say that. Trust your gut, you know? Because we may find a match, we may find a good match for, maybe we like them as a potential employee. We'll find a match for them somewhere else. And we like to ask questions to allow people, give people the chance to talk about their strengths, and open-ended questions give people the opportunity to do that. And can you think of any open-ended questions? This is your final exam. What would be one of the most important questions for you to ask someone, for yourself? I didn't hear that. Mary
one could
Ellen,
be-
if someone's speaking next to Mary Ellen, I didn't hear.
It's Dawn again.
Is she trying to answer the question?
No, she isn't.
Oh, okay.
could be as how would they get around, or how good are they getting around, the city, or this, the city.
I know the city really well, Christina.
Are you gonna get, are you
I know-
applying for the job, Mary Ellen?
No, I know every place in Portland, Matt, because I grew up in Portland. I can show them around South Portland, Westbrook, every place.
So you may ask, if they tell me, oh, I know Portland really well, I may ask them, okay, tell me how to get to this place. How would I get to the Maine Mall from here?
You have to go to the Metropole, so go on Congress Street and take bus 5.
Okay, you've got the job.
Or you could take the South Portland bus or the shuttle bus to the mall too.
Do you have any questions for me? Was there anything that I didn't cover that you'd like me to talk about?
I can't think of anything else, Matt.
This looks really, really good.